This is a great article to show you what the conditions are in Iraq currently right now. How a currency crisis in Iraq risks fight against Islamic State, or ISIL, or ISIS, another name they go by. This is an article from the Bloomberg Business News, Bloomberg.com. It was published August 25th of 2015, just a few days ago. Last week, I should say. Any currency crisis usually comes with the dire consequences for a country, and the threat of one in Iraq shows how the impact can go beyond the economy and markets. A foreign exchange crunch because of a drop in oil prices could force a devaluation of the dinar and risk making the fight against Islamic State militants even tougher. The nation, currently OPEC's biggest producer after Saudi Arabia, is dependent on oil revenue to fund its operations on the battlefield and quell growing unrest over the economy. The biggest problem they got right now is they have a deficit of over $20 billion. So in order to overcome that, they're going to have to borrow the money either from the International Monetary Fund, which they have. I think they borrowed $1.6 or $1.8 billion. Plus they have to borrow money from the World Bank, which they have already over $1 billion or just shy of $1 billion. That's how you overcome your deficit in the country, but it's not enough, folks. They owe about $20 billion in deficit. They're borrowing about $2, maybe $3 billion the most. So they need this bond that's coming up. Dollar reserves tumble about 20% to $59 billion as of July 23rd, since the fight escalated a year before, and the losses are accelerating. In the first 25 days of August, the central bank sold $4.6 billion of currency to keep the dinar at a pegged rate. That's $4.6 billion US dollars in their currency auctions that the CBI sells every day, with the exception of, I believe it's 2 days or 1 day. They don't do that. The daily outflow is about $184 million. And Iraq's perfect storm means that the country will continue to lose reserves until the government of Iraq decides to devalue the dinar, says Frank Gunter. And the reason being is that they're using their reserves. Think about it. If you owe money to something, or you're trying to keep your army running, your security forces operating, and you want to pay their salaries, then you're going to have to borrow the money from somewhere. If the IMF and the World Bank are only going to give you so much amount of money, you got to go to somewhere else. Private donors, private investors. You got to go to tap into what? Your foreign reserves, which is U.S. dollars. So that's why the U.S. dollar's foreign reserve is depleting in Iraq, because they're using the foreign reserves to pay for government projects, government salaries, because they don't want rioting in the street. They don't want them rioting and trying to create more problems. They already got problems with ISIS. They don't need any more problems with internally with the people of Iraq. Let's continue here. It raises the prospect of Iraq joining the other developing nations in a new wave of devaluations as emerging markets take a hammering this month, led by China. The Iraqi dinar is one of those most at risk in the Middle East from that happening, though the current exchange rate regime is likely to remain, according to research published on Tuesday by the Emirates MBD, which is the biggest bank in Dubai. Saudi Arabia's central bank this week said it's committed to the Riyal's dollar peg. The Saudi-owned Al Arabiya television reported amid speculation the country would devalue its currency after the plunge in oil prices. So Saudi Arabia, their neighbor next door, is already devaluing their currency. This is what they do, is what countries do. The U.S. and its allies have sent arms to the Kurds in northern Iraq, and President administration plans to spend another $700 million in 2016 on support for the military. The government in Baghdad, though, pays for the bulk of the operations from its budget since the Americans pulled out their troops in 2011. A collapse in the value of the dinar would raise the cost of living for Iraqis already protesting against government corruption, power cuts, and water shortages. The policy now is to meet the demand for dollars, said Walid Eidi, a director general at the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, on a telephone call on Monday. The reserves won't be depleted because of oil sales, and the dinar won't devalue. You got a guru out there that says that the bond sale is because they want to get rid of the U.S. dollar. It's impossible. That's not what selling a bond does not get rid of a currency. No currency in the world is gotten rid of because of a bond. It's just completely false. So listen to those gurus that say that. They're just full of it. The Iraq central bank fixes the dinar exchange rate at 11.66 per dollar, and there's pressure on the peg. As a result, Iraq's foreign currency reserves may drop it to about $45 billion by the end of 2016. According to Exotics Partners LLP, a London-based investment firm specializing in frontier markets. The authorities will try to hold on to the peg as long as possible, but may be forced to devalue if pressures continue, said Jacob Christensen, a director at Exotics. The central bank has so far resisted government pressure to print money to meet an estimated $30 billion budget deficit. That's $30 billion they owe that they can't pay for, folks. They just can't. So they need additional money from somewhere. Let me back up. It announced plans for a $6 billion bond program last week, which follows about $1.2 billion from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Now, IMF's going to loan them $1.2 billion. That's a far cry from $30 billion. So where are they going to come up with the money? They're going to have to print more money, folks. They're going to have to print more Iraqi dinar to fix this deficit and what's going to happen there? Inflation's going to start going up. That leaves the finance ministry with few easy choices. The government is seeking to cut spending and tackle corruption. Other options include borrowing domestically from public banks or even forcing the central bank to buy dollar-denominated bonds from the finance ministry. Iraq will be able to finance its 2015 deficit, but if the battle against Islamic State and low oil prices continues, Iraq will then hit a wall. We'll see what happens. See what the Iraqi government can fix the situation. I don't think so. I think they're going to be in a world of hurt and have to do something about it. And you're going to see them printing more Iraqi dinars, and money supply is going to go up, folks. That's what's going to happen. And any guru out there that says they're trying to get rid of the U.S. dollar is flat out wrong. This is the American Contractor, and thank you for watching and listening to the American Contractor talking about the currency crisis in Iraq, risk fight against Islamic State.